Becoming Michael Jackson wasn't just about looking like him. Every movement, expression, and performance had to convince audiences who knew Michael better than almost anyone. Even the smallest detail had to feel right. For Jaafar Jackson, reaching that level didn't happen overnight. Long before the camera started rolling, he spent years preparing for the role. He studied Michael's performances, practiced his movements, and worked to understand what made him so unique.
It was important for me to understand the human side of Michael and that individual side of him that not a lot of people were familiar with. So that was very exciting for me to dive into.
The transformation didn't start with costumes or choreography. It started with one of the hardest parts to recreate, and that was Michael's face. The makeup team quickly realized that some of Michael's most recognizable features couldn't be recreated with makeup alone, no matter how skilled the artists were. Because of that, they had to find another approach that would help complete the illusion. Every decision was made with the goal of making the final look feel as close to Michael as possible without losing the person underneath.
We knew that I could only add, Jaafar has a healthy nose from his profile. You know, he has a bit of an arc to his nose. So we knew that we could never get rid of that. And even by me adding slight appliances to create more of the shape and feel of Michael's nose, we would never be able to get his little upturned, smaller nose. So there was always going to be a digital element.
But finding the right look wasn't just about making Jaafar resemble Michael as much as possible. The team experimented with different ideas, testing several approaches before realizing they needed to strike the right balance. They wanted audiences to immediately recognize Michael on screen while still understanding that it was Jaafar delivering the performance. That balance became one of the biggest priorities throughout the process, and it ultimately shaped the entire transformation from beginning to end.
And I think some of those tests went a bit extreme. They thought, oh, well, we can do a lot and make him look really a lot like Michael. And Graham realized quickly that that was not necessary. We don't need to do that. It was off-putting.
You know, Jaafar is not world-renowned. We don't want him to come in a press conference and nobody recognize him because we modified Jaafar to look like Michael Jackson so much that nobody knows Jaafar was playing him.
Once that approach was decided, it became a true team effort. The makeup and visual effects departments worked side by side from the very beginning, constantly sharing ideas, comparing notes, and planning each step together. Rather than treating their work as separate jobs, they approached the entire transformation as one connected process from start to finish. That collaboration helped ensure every detail blended together naturally, creating a final result that looked believable from every angle and stayed consistent throughout the film.
The nose, over time, famously got smaller and smaller, which wasn't something we could always achieve in camera with prosthetic.
And I told Louis right out of the gate, like, look, I've worked with this stuff a lot. I've done a lot of digital work myself, and I'd love to be really involved, and I'd love to work in tandem with you. Knowing you're gonna have to come in and work on my work, I'd love to have this big collaboration between the two of us. And he was excited for that. And as most people usually are, you know, it only makes the work better if the two departments can work together.
When Michael 2 continues into the later years of Michael Jackson's career, Jaafar's transformation will have to evolve once again. Instead of recreating the Thriller and Bad eras, he'll need to reflect Michael's changing appearance throughout the Dangerous, History, and Invincible years. That means different hairstyles, updated makeup, changing facial features, and a wardrobe that matches each period, from the gold military-inspired outfits of the History era to the sleeker looks of the 2000s. Just as in the first film, every change will be about capturing the specific version of Michael audiences remember from each stage of his life, making the passage of time feel believable as the story moves forward. Meanwhile, in an interview, Jaafar talked about the audition for the first movie, revealing how difficult the whole process was for him.
I grew up loving, obviously, watching Michael's videos and studying his moves and things like that, but that I started to work on a lot of scenes from other films, and it was a multi-year process. It wasn't just a traditional audition. I definitely had to earn the role for a 2-year process, really.
Jaafar is then asked what it was like to watch himself slowly transform into Michael. It's a question that takes him back to those long hours spent sitting in the makeup chair before filming even began. Day after day, he watched the transformation happen piece by piece, with every stage bringing him a little closer to the role. Over time, the reflection in the mirror started looking less like him and more like the person he had spent years preparing to portray. It became a daily reminder of how much work had gone into reaching that moment.
Do you look in the mirror and go, what's going on? Or do you go, this is surreal? This is my uncle. This is crazy.
Oh, 100%, absolutely. It was It was really a surreal, a spiritual moment at the same time. You know, spending all those hours in the makeup chair.
One of the biggest tests came early in the process. Before Jaafar could fully step into Michael's shoes, he first had to prove he was ready for the role. It wasn't simply about looking the part. He needed to show that he could handle everything the role demanded. The challenge pushed him to his limits and tested everything he had been working toward for years. At the same time, it laid the foundation for everything audiences have already seen in Michael and everything that's still waiting in Michael too.
So we broke down frame by frame the Billie Jean performance from Motown 25, and that was the first set of choreography I started to learn throughout the process, and I had 20 days to kind of prove to them and the filmmakers that I can pull it off within those 20 days, even though in my mind I was like, 20 days? How can I do that? I need a lot more time, and within that time I was very doubtful, and it was incredibly challenging.
By the time Jaafar started looking like Michael, there was still one major challenge left. He had to convince people that he could truly play him. Since acting was completely new to him, there was no experience to rely on, so everything had to start from the very beginning. Every lesson, every rehearsal, and every performance became part of the process of building the confidence and skills he needed before he could fully step into such an iconic role.
I'd never acted before, I'd never wanted to act, so I had a lot of, I was in conflict with it because I wasn't sure if I can really do it or not. So then I got with an acting coach, and I really want to learn what is acting, and start there before trying to embody Michael. So I did that for about a year, and then I started to really, study Michael's videos, his lyrics, everything about him. And that's when I started to embody him.
After seeing all the work Jaafar had put into preparing for the film, one reaction stood out more than the rest. Jackie Jackson had spent years watching Michael perform, rehearse, and live his everyday life, so seeing his own nephew step into that role was always going to be a unique experience.
A lot of people emulate Michael, but Jaafar became Michael on that screen. There's nothing like it, brought tears to my eyes when I saw it. This is how he captured Michael's presence on the screen.
The way Jackie talks about it makes it clear just how much the moment meant to him. His reaction reflects not only his excitement, but also the respect he had for everything Jaafar had done to prepare.
I got so emotional because he became Michael on that screen, and it brought tears to my eyes. I couldn't believe it. He's incredible. Where did you see it?
No, I saw it, and it is unbelievable. And you don't even think about that being Jaafar. You think of that being Michael.
Watching Michael, absolutely. It was incredible how they captured that like that. And Jaafar, like I said, he became Michael on that screen. He's incredible.
As Marlon reflects on those days of filming, he remembers the impression Jaafar made almost immediately. Having watched Michael up close for so many years, he understood better than most people just how difficult it was to capture his presence. Michael's movements, personality, and energy were unlike anyone else's. That's why seeing Jaafar on set stood out to him in a way he hadn't expected and left a lasting impression from the very beginning.
When I was on the set, the very first day, somebody asked me a question. I said, let me tell you all something. I said, there's a lot of people out there that imitate my brother Michael. Unbelievable. And fantastic. I said, but the difference between them and Jaafar is that they imitate Michael and Jaafar became.
Tito Jackson felt the same way. After watching Jaafar take on the role, he shares what impressed him the most about the performance. Coming from someone who knew Michael better than almost anyone, his reaction carries a special kind of meaning. Hearing those words naturally builds even more excitement for what's still to come when the story continues in Michael 2.
I think Jaafar was just unbelievable from what I've seen, because he became Michael. I told him, if you do this role, we want to see Michael in you. And that's what everybody says.
Once that foundation was in place, Jaafar shifted all of his attention to Michael. He wasn't just watching performances or memorizing dance routines. Instead, he spent time studying the different stages of Michael's career, paying close attention to the way he carried himself, the choices he made, and the person behind the performer. The goal wasn't simply to copy what audiences had already seen. It was to understand who Michael truly was before trying to bring him to the screen.
To emulate, for me, it all started with the foundation. So I study a lot of the Jackson 5, and then when it became the Jacksons, and just to see really focusing on Michael and how he's feeling in those moments. Also creatively, what he wanted to express and that longing for that independence and what that felt like.
But Jaafar didn't stop with videos. The more he learned, the more he wanted to understand how Michael thought and what shaped him as a person. His research gradually became much more personal, going far beyond performances and public appearances. That deeper understanding helped him connect with the role in a completely different way and gave him a stronger sense of the person he was preparing to portray.
For me, it was really looking into his personal writings, his personal journaling, and that was truly informative to allow me into his mindset of how he was feeling, of what he wanted to achieve, some goals he had written down, and then I created this timeline room of so much information that really allowed me to stay grounded in it and not get lost in a way, because I really needed to see it, with my own eyes. And that really informed me, even with the script. So I knew where each timeline was, and I understood what he was feeling. Also, his personal notes allowed me to do that and place it in that time.
But none of that research would have meant much without the hours of practice that followed. So Jaafar kept training, often by himself, going through the same movements again and again until they started to feel completely natural. There was no audience, no cameras, and no applause waiting at the end. Just long hours of repetition and hard work behind the scenes. It was never about putting on a show or impressing anyone in the moment. It was about reaching the point where every movement felt genuine and every performance no longer felt like an act, but something that came naturally every time he stepped into the role.
I think once I had that time afterwards, after those 20 days, taking that time to Havenhurst and setting up mirrors in the same dancing room Michael would train in, I think that really was a spiritual journey for me, just to be in that same energy, to sit in that space, but also just to dance for hours and hours every day and look at it as a full-time job. It was life-changing for me to have that experience, even for my body, to not be go from not dancing or having some rhythm, but then to doing full-on Michael Jackson moves, but performing. And it was all for myself at the moment. I had no audience. It was just me in some mirrors and in a room and just grinding it out until I felt like I can fool myself in the mirror.
Even with all that preparation, some of Michael's signature moves were still incredibly difficult to recreate. Getting them right wasn't just important for Michael. They also needed to lay the groundwork for everything that's still to come in Michael 2. Every small detail mattered, from the timing to the body language, and Jaafar kept practicing until those movements felt as natural and effortless as possible.
And the moonwalk, as a kid, I always used to try and do it, but it's different when you're doing it as a kid to when then you're trying to do it just like Michael and look just like him doing it. The moonwalk is very challenging for many different reasons. The flooring is important with the shoes you're wearing, and that was something new for me, is being able to dance in loafers and getting used to that. But the moonwalk, I'm still figuring that one out too. I would say the spin and the moonwalk are definitely the most challenging. The way Michael spins, going into it, I didn't think it would be that hard, or I knew it would be somewhat challenging, but not as hard as it came out to be, because I'm still, trying to figure that out.
Even after months of training, some of the smallest details were still the hardest to get right. It wasn't enough to know the choreography. Every movement had to have the same timing, balance, and control that made Michael's performances so recognizable. That meant unlearning old habits, adjusting to a completely different way of moving, and repeating those moments until they finally felt right.
I usually, if I were to spin, I spin to my right, and Michael spins to his left, so it was so challenging to find that balance and get used to spinning on the opposite side where you're naturally used to, and doing it in the way that looks just like Michael, or to have that speed and intensity. But also being able to stop on a dime, or right when that snare hits, or to control that timing of when you stop and have the balance and then go into another transition of a move.
Looking back, Jaafar makes it clear that none of this happened overnight. Long before filming ever began, he spent years working toward the role without knowing whether all that effort would eventually pay off. There were no guarantees that he would ever get the opportunity, and even after he was finally chosen, the work didn't slow down. If anything, that was the moment the real preparation truly began.
And it was a process that was almost 2 years of just the auditioning, and that's before I even knew I was really gonna play him. Then after that, I had like another 1.5 years to really hone in on the little details and nuances, and with that confidence knowing that I have the role. But the auditioning process was was very, very challenging.
That preparation wasn't just about Michael. Since acting was completely new to him, Jaafar first wanted to understand how great performances were created in the first place. Before focusing entirely on the role itself, he spent time studying actors whose work had left a lasting impression on him. He paid attention to their techniques, their preparation, and the way they approached their performances, taking ideas from each of them while discovering what worked best for his own process.
Oh yeah, well, I didn't know anything about acting, but I've always been a fan of films, and I started off doing music and producing and songwriting. But in the process of, in the beginning, it was like, what is acting? So I started to look at films that I was inspired by actors that are in there, like Daniel Day-Lewis.
They're in it.
Joaquin Phoenix and Christian Bale, just how they transform, and really, I was very inspired by that. So I wanted to see what was their work ethic like when they embody a character. So that really inspired me to really study that and then apply that.
The preparation didn't stop with the acting or the dancing. Jaafar also spent a huge amount of time working on Michael's voice, knowing it would be one of the very first things audiences noticed. His goal was never to make it sound forced or like a simple impression. Instead, he practiced patiently day after day until it became second nature. Over time, the voice started coming naturally whenever he stepped into the role, making the performance feel even more authentic.
Speaking of transformations, I mean, how long did it take to nail? You have a very different speaking voice than your uncle. How long did it take to master that? It's very particular.
It was interesting because at first it was very silly to my own ears, when I was trying to do that. So I really read a lot of books in his voice, and each book I got better, basically. And, you get more used to it. Then sometimes I'd be out like in a grocery store and I'd be talking to someone, but I'd naturally respond, and I'm like, wait, that sounded kind of like Michael. Like, I wasn't trying to do it intentionally, so I wanted to get to that place where I wasn't thinking about it, like putting it on. It would just come out naturally.
There was another side of Michael that Jaafar hadn't seen before. The more he learned about it, the more it changed the way he looked at the role and the person behind it. It gave him a completely different perspective on Michael's life and became an important part of his preparation. Before long, it had even become part of Jaafar's own daily routine while getting ready for the film. It was one of those discoveries that stayed with him throughout the entire journey.
Through the process, what surprised me most, I would say, is I was allowed access to a lot of his personal notes, and I realized that he would do mantras, affirmations, and his belief in manifestation was incredible. I didn't realize that about him until I really dived into it. Everything he wanted to achieve, he'd write it down, he would repeat it. He'd even meditate for 30 minutes and just look at those mantras and repeat it back to back. He put on mirrors, he put on the ceiling, so you can see it every day, and it really was like his pursuit to greatness. So I applied that same work ethic and that same belief with how I was preparing, going towards shooting, and it was very incredible just to see what those notes were saying.
Then, after spending years preparing for the role, Jaafar also looks back on how that journey first began. There wasn't one audition, one meeting, or one single moment that changed everything. Instead, the opportunity developed gradually over time, with every conversation, every experience, and every new challenge bringing him one step closer to becoming Michael. Looking back now, it's clear that earning the role was a journey in itself, long before filming ever began.
It was not a traditional process of auditioning. I first got a call from Graham King, the producer.
Oh, wow.
And he first asked me, like, have you ever acted before? Do you like acting? And I told him, I love films, but I never thought or dreamed of wanting to be an actor. So a couple weeks went by and I sent him a text out of the blue of me speaking as Michael to the best of my ability at the time and singing a song as Michael. I just texted it to him randomly, and he called me back saying, wow, I'm getting you a coach tomorrow and see where this can go. That led to another thing for 6 months to a year. So it was a culmination of many moments that really led up to me getting the role until I think I had a screen test with the full hair and makeup, and I think that really solidified it.
After waiting and preparing for so long, Jaafar finally got the chance to perform as Michael. It was the moment everything had been building toward for years. Countless hours of training, rehearsals, preparation, and practice had all led to that first performance. It's easy to understand why the experience meant so much to him after everything he had invested. And while audiences have already seen the beginning of that journey in Michael, there's still another chapter waiting when Michael too continues the story.
I remember that. So vividly. I was in the Bad tour outfit, performing the Bad song, actually, and it was day one.
That was the first day?
That was the first day.
Oh my God.
Shooting that,
up here.
Yeah, we started on the highest level, and it was so demanding. I just remember having so much built-up anticipation and excitement because I was rehearsing for a couple years. I was rehearsing for a couple years privately, a lot on my own, and then with Rich and Tone, who were the choreographers of Michael, but mainly on my own in the mirror. And I just couldn't wait to have a crowd or the film crew to do it in front of. So it was that built-up excitement for a long time.
After seeing Jaafar as Michael, people who had been closest to Michael began sharing their thoughts. Marlon Jackson revealed more details about the movie and the whole process. Having spent a lifetime alongside his brother, his perspective carried a different kind of weight. He knew better than almost anyone what made Michael unique, and it was clear that seeing Jaafar step into the role left a genuine and lasting impression on him.
I don't know much because I don't follow that stuff. I stay away from controversial stuff and all that stuff because to me my health is more important than anything. But I will tell you this. This is a family-oriented movie. It's a great movie, and that's what it was about, just bringing families together.
Hearing that kind of reaction from someone so close to Michael naturally makes you even more curious about what's still waiting when Michael 2 continues the story. If you want to see more stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.